We do have 4 New Bedford teachers from different schools sitting in studio this morning. They've asked us to cloak their identity because they're afraid of repercussion.
Yeah.
And they've got some pretty disturbing stories
They
here.
do,
They
yeah.
really do. So we only got a couple more minutes with this, then we kind of have to move on. But you can finish up what you were saying here. So you wanted one more thing to say?
One more incident that I want to talk about, and then I will let somebody else talk about. I was walking from my classroom down to the copy room to make some copies for, the rest of my day. And I heard this awful banging and slamming and screaming coming from the floor above me. So I was with 2 other teachers from my team. We went running upstairs only to find a child being held on the floor by the resource officer, screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs how he just wanted to die. And the saddest part about that is he really meant it. I just want to die. Just let me die. Just let me go. This is a child that had just been placed back into our building from a mental health facility because there's no interim place. There's no, okay, you're going from a hospitalization back into school. It shouldn't happen that way. This is happening right in front of other students and right around the corner from classrooms. Does this happen daily? Something to this level doesn't happen daily, but probably weekly.
How many attacks on teachers have there been this year?
I can tell you that there have been many.
One is too many, but I mean,
There was an incident just 2 weeks ago where our physical education teacher was assaulted in the locker room by a student. She was left. She walked out of that room, came to my room to report it to me. She had bruises, physical bruises on her. She was punched in her arm and her chest by a student because the student was asked to leave the locker room because the child was acting up in gym class. She wouldn't change. She wouldn't follow protocol in gym. And then the student decided she was going to not listen to the teacher, the instructor, and go into the locker room to pretty herself in the mirror. When the physical education teacher went in to address the concern as to why she hadn't left for the office, the child assaulted her. The teacher was out for 3 days.
And the thing is, though, is that it's being touted as it's a safe place. Don't worry about sending your children here.
Right.
I honestly would not send my kids to the New Bedford school system. It is not a safe environment for kids.
so you're saying it's not as rosy as...
Absolutely not.
Let me ask you this question, because there's a marked difference between the union's message this year than last year. Last year, it was red alert. This year, it seems much more calm. Why?
Because there has been negotiations. The union has settled some of the concerns that they've had with our district.
But shouldn't the union be talking about teachers getting attacked?
I'm not sure why they're not saying it, and I can honestly tell you that I don't know how much of these assaults are reported.
But if this were happening last year, this would be front page news. Why is it not front page news now?
That's a question we all have. And I mean, I know there are issues this year, and many of us equate that with a fear of being penalized or, have something happen to your own job because you're reporting these things.
Is there a reason to fear that? Has anybody ever reported something and been fired or anything like that?
Well, I think if you want to pick up on the incident that happened at the high school with the teacher that had a chair thrown at her, there were repercussions.
Yeah, she had a disciplinary hearing.
She had a disciplinary hearing for that. And so I think that tends to make people think twice before they speak up.
If this happens to you, you're going to have a disciplinary hearing.
And just to let you know, it's not always about assault. It is about disruptive, unnecessary behavior. It only takes 1 or 2 to throw the whole 25 off.
For the entire
We have
class.
simple things like we could ask a child, please don't sit there, okay? Just sit in a different seat. Just move right there. I'm not moving. Now, how often do those things happen? Do the teachers throw? Very often. I can't give you a number, but very often. And then you could say to the child, if you don't move for me, you're going to either have to move for an administrator that I'm going to have to call, okay, for something this silly, or maybe the SRO, the school resource officer. And their response is, go ahead and call them.
So what do you guys want? What is the solution here?
What we want is to help teach kids how they need to act in the community.
Right.
Not just in school, but in life, right? Because in life, if you do the wrong thing, life meaning outside of school, if you say, no, I'm not going to get off this private property, you could be arrested for that. There's something called PBIS. It's been talked about in our district a little bit more recently. It's called Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, or system. And the idea is that you teach kids how to act in school before you teach them what you're supposed to, or the academics of school. We need a strong system like that in our district. For example, an administrator comes into a classroom and they see a teacher teaching them how to act and not teaching them the curriculum, right? They're not teaching English or math or history or science. That there's no, the teacher's not afraid of getting in trouble for teaching a kid how to act.
Well, we thank you for coming down to Fun 107 this morning. Obviously, a lot to sort through.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I think we all have the same goal, so that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very
your
much for
time.
having us.
Thanks for your time.